Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the third part of this series, which is covering my general animation process when it comes to pixel art. For the remainder of this particular video series, I'm mostly just touching up the animation that we started up in the first video of Avatar Korra here from the series Legend of Korra. And what's happened off camera in this case is just a few small tweaks, including just adjusting the hair a bit to add a little bit more bounce, because beforehand it was entirely static. By this point of the animation, except for finishing details, which in this case involves getting the hand positioning and animation correct, and maybe some other small tweaks here and there, the animation is really just about done. This is where the fine-tuning comes in for a lot of it. One of the things I recall changing a number of times during this particular animation was how I kept treating Korra's neck here, which started off with a kind of a back and forth head movement, but at this point we're kind of returned to the original static state that I had when I was just beginning to animate things and really just had arms only. In case you're wondering, yes, I basically am dedicating most of this video to just how I end up animating the hands. Part of the reason for that is, in case you might have not noticed from actual Capcom games, they tend to exaggerate the size of their hands and feet within their actual in-game sprites. And part of the reason for that is because at this scale, they're actually really pain in the ass to draw. Seriously though, they will actually exaggerate the size of the hands and feet in order to make drawing all the details such as the fingers and toes easier to draw, or they'll go the other route and draw it in such a plain fashion where they can get away with really omitting any detail whatsoever, other than maybe just a big toe or a thumb or finger that's extended in order to just make their own lives easier. While it would be amusing to just have her rotating her hands this whole time, in the case of what I'm going to do with Korra here, I'm going to set up, give or take, the first regular hand position, then the secondary position where it's closer to being downward, and just kind of shift things around with a small transition frame or two in order to help keep it fluid without having to basically redraw the hand in a different position each and every time. And it still should hypothetically turn out pretty well throughout the animation. While I'm at it, I'll also be sure to step back and fix the arm in the background, which actually shrinks in size in terms of the forearm for a couple of frames, which is one of the things I was planning to go back on since I hadn't finished shading on the wrist part anyway. Just to give an example of something else I happen to be working on off camera, I was working on a few extra animations for the Kung Fu Man character, usually paired up with the Mugen Engine, and the animation looked a little something like this. In this case, an alternating version of the Kung Fu palm to involve the other arm, which I believe is actually being used in someone else's project right now as an X version, but don't quote me on that just yet because it hasn't popped up yet. To give you an idea how fun that particular animation was to work on, I actually had to go back and fix the original Kung Fu palm animation frames due to the various animation errors that were present within them. Just to give you an idea of what kind of fixes I needed to set up for that first animation, on the actual sliding forward part, the back leg would stretch out and start bending in an angle which, if it were real life, that person's leg would have broken. And during the actual striking part, Kung Fu Man's back arm would sink into his body, so pretty much shrinking the upper torso, as well as shrinking the physical arm itself, now that I think about it, only to then later retract and regrow as he went back to something closer to the actual stance. One of the few things regarding that animation though is I might actually have to go back to dumb down the shading, because I probably actually went a little overboard and made it noticeably better than the shading on the actual regular Kung Fu Man sprites, but that's something to fix on another day, I suppose. If anything, I actually want to finish drawing up some new custom basic movements and attacks for the character, as the way he was originally set up was a 4-button character, and part of the thing I'm setting up for another person is trying to fill in some basics in order to make him a 6-button character, which means all the mental attacks that have been subsequently skipped now need to be drawn up. Stepping back to Korra now, I'm pretty much fixing up the back arm right now, as you can tell. Earlier on you probably noticed I had to cut and paste a few things just because I had been drawing some improvements, but I had been drawing them on the wrong layer, which is probably one of the few things that could be occasionally problematic when working with graphic scale if you're not fully paying attention to what layer you're working on. But of course it's a quick fix. Now now that I've drawn up the hand in one or two general positions, I'm starting to kind of paste it over the makeshift hands I had in earlier to put something that is still fairly fluid, but of course saves me a little time if I can reuse the hands a bit here and there. While I'm fixing those hands, I'm of course fixing the forearms too, because as you can see, I had to adjust the length on one or two of those frames because the forearm was actually too short compared to how it was in previous frames and the subsequent frames for that matter. In that case, while I'm fixing that up, I'm also adjusting the elbow just to give a little back in there around the actual joint itself because it was too short beforehand. From the looks of things, I'm pretty much on the tail end of the animation, with one of the last big hurdles I'm coming into being just getting that one foreground hand correct. Most of the fun I have here is just trying to keep things looking consistent for one in general scale, but also making it look good while the hand curls and uncurls with fingers, which of course at this scale proves a little problematic. That's why you will only see me really detail one or two of the major fingers there. They're the ones extending and contracting, while the other fingers, which I can't quite remember, there's the pinky and then there's the other one which I just never know the name of. It'll be the one right beside that one. Aren't generally shown too much of, just because those ones don't actually move as much. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, with Avatar Korra here pretty much being finished, that's my animation process in a nutshell. I'd like to thank you for taking the time in order to watch my little mini-series here. I'll be, of course, returning to the I Am Many Ninjas playthrough of Double Dragon Neon shortly enough. I've had some issues kind of syncing that up with the audio, but I think I just about wrapped things up, so that'll be continuing there shortly. And who knows, maybe I'll do another animation sequence in the future involving animating a special attack next time around. Well, anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you'll come back soon.